Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Last week, there were two statements which stirred hornet's nest. And all that hullabaloo, all that noise, all that sound and fury signifying nothing was about two persons who made statements that were correct to a great extent. And to condemn those persons as being divisive or in any way dangerous is not only shallow thought, but also, in fact, a loaded statement that has no meaning otherwise. And it's only the biased people with prejudiced minds who call them dangerous. They are essentially honest. I'm talking about Don Cherry and about Jason Kenney, Premier Kenney of Alberta. Kerry got national attention and deserved his praise. The statement was correct to a great extent. I'm an immigrant, and I know the people often do not wear the poppy flower. The poppy signifying our homage and our remembrance to those people who sacrifice their lives for the country, for the freedom, should be an accepted norm, but most of the people don't do it. So if Don Cherry was making a statement that was based on fact, to call it racist was stupid, if not lunatic. But then those people have their own agenda. They want to garner sympathy. They want to garner a praise from the people who won't bother either way. But the politicians, when they make a statement, and that is called dangerous, divisive, has an inherent insidious intent, and that is to garner votes, to be in power so that they can keep on exploiting. Kenny's statement last Saturday in Red Deer, where he laid out a prescription for improving Alberta's health, cannot be ignored. And lo, what happened? A very sensible suggestion, which is open for comment. If you want to oppose that prescription, it's not necessary that you agree. But the way, like NDP and the Liberals started reacting, shows absolutely lack of all sense. As a matter of fact, NDP called outdated the statement, Gary, and divisive. And the reality is that I was amazed that Jason Kenney was being so moderate and centrist. He was not at all divisive. He was very pragmatic in his approach. But the instant depiction of that as a way to separatism by NDP and by the Liberal is something which is beyond comprehension. Everything in his prescription of what to do was permissible legally and by constitution. He was going exactly where the constitution would permit any premier to go. And as a premier, he is doing what Trump is doing to his nation. So what's wrong with that? I remember Trump once saying that every head should look after his people. If it's a country, for the countryman, if it's a province, for the provincial people. And that's why the economy boomed under Trump, and that's why the economy will boom under Kenney in Alberta. You may not like these ideas. You may hate them. But to call them divisive and to call them dangerous shows your own attitude, which is prejudiced and poisonous in nature. To say that the province cannot discuss anything using its legitimate powers granted to it by the Constitution That is what is dangerous. And that is basically un-Canadian. If you remember, there was a Premier Peter Loy, and he has been the object of all criticism from all sides. He was also called a destroyer of the nation because he suggested cutting oil supplies to the rest of Canada. And yet, despite his criticism, in 2012, if you remember, he was named the best Premier Canada ever had in the past 40 years. 4 decades, Canada did not have any such premier as Lohit. Why? His ideas were the same. And unfortunately, those ideas were not new. What Kenney was saying was in fact a rehash of what Ralph Glenn used to say. And if you remember, in 2001, he had written a farewell letter in which these ideas were propounded. Nobody called them divisive. In fact, they were deemed to be very pragmatic, and they are. You cannot call them improper or invalid because you do not accept them from a political point of view. But don't you think that they need a discussion, a thought? Now, there are three general reactions to the Alberta's crisis today. Let's not forget that Alberta has been the economic engine of this country, that Alberta has been the most prosperous province of this country. But the absolutely Greta Thunberg effect, pre and post, and absolutely inane apologies for the climate change, which I have been condemning for the last 10 years, have made this province downgrade its economic progress. Now, what should be done? Way out. See, NDP idea, they favor Kennedy's measures when they were in power. They didn't implement them, but theoretically, they were in agreement with Kenney saying no. Secondly, the second reaction is what Texas is doing. If the things don't work out, Western provinces should separate. But Kenney is not in favor of either of them. He says there's a better chance of working things out if Alberta can pressurize Ottawa using dormant powers. Unfortunately, the federal system here in Canada has been moving away from the very concept of federation. It's moving towards more unitary form, giving more and more powers to the federal government. There's antithesis of the very concept of federalism. And suppose there's no settlement, then Alberta should be able to protect its interest. So what's wrong with that? The criticism till now has been immediate, unrestrained. Now, look at the idea of the police force. How do you call that separatist? If Ontario can have its own police force, OPP, if Quebec can have its own police force, then what not say Alberta should have Alberta provincial police? What's wrong with that? And other demands, Kennedy asked Ottawa to lift the $60 per capita limit on the fiscal stabilization grants. Why should the limits be there? As a matter of fact, the whole concept of stabilization grant is idiotic. There should be no stabilization grant. As I said in one of my comments earlier, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. When Alberta's revenue fell because of the oil crash, and they fell by 6.9 billion, what was the stabilization grant given to Alberta? Just $251 million, less than the province received in 86-87 when there was no population gap. Should the payment not be commensurate with the loss? How can you do it per capita, $60 per capita? That's absolutely ridiculous. And if you remember, NDP Minister of Finance, Cersei had said the same thing. And yet NDP didn't condemn its own minister. He demanded the same thing, and I'll read out his letter. In order for this program to work for us, Alberta, we must remove this cap so that provinces can receive adequate support when the revenues fall sharply. Of course, Trudeau government didn't accept NDP, but today Trudeau government is begging NDP to help it out. So NDP now has the same concerns as Kenney: equalization, stabilization, and then what do you want? Pipeline. And that is what is required. And imagine the same premier who was premier at that time, Notte, wanted these things, and now she's in opposition and she calls them dangerous. Wow. And then we think that these leaders can sustain us, can support us, and can be enablers of progress? No. Is Kenney using this for his political advantage? I don't think so. And another thing is provincial pension system. There, I don't agree with that. Let me be very frank, because the money that Alberta has given would not, would not come back. But then equalization, pipeline, this is what is required. Today is a time when the emotions are raw and superheated. Today is a time when we need a moderate approach, and Premier Kenney is advocating a moderate approach. He is not saying let's separate. But he doesn't want Alberta to go down as well. He has to protect Alberta. So, in fact, by condemning Kenney's ideas as being dangerous, as being separatist, the opposition in the form of NDP and Liberals are stoking the fires of separatism. If Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister, he is the Prime Minister not of Ontario and Quebec only. He is the Prime Minister of whole of Canada. Whether he got 0 seat from Alberta or not is not material. But Constitution and human equity requires that he should pay equal attention to this part of the world as well. Unfortunately, our Prime Minister has no imagination, absolutely no. He is motivated by false sense of issues which have no relevance. They call dirty. What's dirty about it? It sustains them. And he contradicts himself when he flies in 2 jets with an escort of 2 fighters. Is that gasoline not dirty? Anyway, that we have taken up separately, his hypocrisy. Today I'm talking of Jason Kenney. Let's not forget the mythical Jason, who went in the search of the golden fleece and came back victorious. When Jason Kenney was elected the leader of UCP and then the premier, I tweeted and sent an email as well to Jason, mentioning that you are like mythical Jason, who won the golden fleece for his people. And here is this Jason, who is on the road to win the golden fleece. And the golden fleece here would be economic revival, progress, and prosperity of this province, which is in fact the economic progress, prosperity, and and uplift of the whole country in wealth. This province has been sustaining Canada. Let Canada not choke itself and strangulate itself and suffocate itself by depriving this province of its just needs. And Kenney is, in fact, very human, a pragmatist, a realist, and his ideas are really useful to the province and to the country. Let's not be confused by the noise that the opposition is making. They have an agenda. They have an agenda that the conservative movements, even if they're good, are crushed. No, that is wrong. That is being anti-national. That is being divisive. That is being dangerous. Not Kenney's ideas, which are, as I said, progressive, centrist, and very measured ones. Think about it. Thank you.